Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian Aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello everybody, my name is Adam Thorne and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast, the podcast where we talk a lot of drivel really, and occasionally there's some sort of insight. I'm here to speak most of the drivel, is my co-host Jake Nelson. Jake, how are you?
I thought you said I'm here to speak most of the drivel, Adam, and I was prepared to agree with you, but...
No, it is you. It is you. Yeah, nonsense, isn't it? Right, we usually start the show with various shout-outs to our adoring fan base. Jake, what do we got this week? What are we starting with?
Well, we got an email from a lovely young gentleman called Edward, who I believe, or Eddie, who I believe is a school student. He wrote to us for a journalism competition in South America.
Go on,
not
Eddie.
South America, South Australia.
Go on, Eddie.
I almost said South Africa, and then I was like, no, that's not right. It's South America. And then I'm like, wait, no, it's South Australia. So that shows how much I know. But he chose aviation safety as his topic, and
Smart
he thought...
lads. Smart lads.
A very smart lad. He thought it would be a good idea to reach out to us. He said we're always caught up on aviation news and incidents, and he likes our YouTube videos.
Yeah, that's
not
good.
to like.
So hang on a minute. So he's like in high school or something, right?
Something like that.
And he's doing his school project on aviation safety.
Well, he's doing it for a journalism competition.
Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This is good. We love this. We love this. So we've kind of, I don't want to big us up too much. Obviously he's reached out to us because he's a fan of the show. Maybe this show has inspired him to do his project on aviation safety. This is brilliant. Maybe
if we're inspiring him, that's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. But maybe, so he does his project for his journalism thing. Maybe that means in a few years or potentially next week, he could come and work for us as an aviation journalist.
Potentially.
Yeah, no, this sounds pretty good. So yeah, no, what sort of questions did he ask?
He was asking if things like is there an increase in aviation crashes and incidents? Is being a pilot a dangerous job? What's the most dangerous type of aviation? Are most crashes and incidents caused by pilot error? So we did our best to answer his questions. And Eddie, if you need any further assistance, there's plenty of academic experts that we know, so don't hesitate to reach out to us again.
Yeah, and also, even if you don't need our help again, please keep in touch and let us know how you did. I don't know how do they score them like A, B, C in Australian schools when you submit a project?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, overall marks tend to be in the form of high distinction.
Yeah, it's just a high. It's
pass.
So he's at a high school journalism thing. So they're probably not giving him high distinction. Do you get distinctions at high school?
Yeah, you can get distinctions
really?
in high school.
Well, I mean, I think. But
this is a journalism competition.
Yeah,
I don't think it's specifically a school thing.
I see. Well, I'd like to think he's going to be in it to win it. Well, we're winners here. We like winning competitions. Whatever you need from us, you get in touch. If you need us to sort of kneecap your rivals, flush your heads down the toilets, maybe whack them at night, whatever it takes.
Yeah, it's
we will do
all of those journalists who write with their kneecaps.
Yeah, no, but basically, if you need us to use extreme physical violence on any of those other kids...
Tonya Harding on a high school journalism competition.
Anyway, Eddie, love that. You have all our best wishes. Go on, son. Next up.
Next, we have received a lovely and unexpected gift. It's a copy of Australian Aviation magazine.
Quality publication.
Yeah, I've heard that there's some really good stories in this issue. But this came to us from a loyal reader, Mark, over in South Australia. He said, thank you for my new edition of your great magazine. However, returning the second copy received. So he didn't need to do that.
That is extraordinary.
Didn't need to send that back to us.
Let's just go through in detail because it needs to be what's happened. So he was accidentally sent two issues.
Two copies, yeah.
And has gone to the trouble
of sending
one back. What was his name again? Sorry?
Mark.
Right. Mark, if you are watching or listening to this, that is I want to look into the camera for this. That is such a lovely, kind gesture, honestly. So it can be quite a hectic newsroom and stuff. I remember getting that and my heart melted. Genuinely, that was lovely. Everyone around my table was like, that's lovely. I don't want to sound cliche. This is why we do the job. This is why we make the magazine. But thank you. That's such a lovely, kind gesture. It genuinely meant the world. So thank you very much again.
We've also had another email from, you remember our old friend Bernster, Bernie, who
Oh,
does the
he's
website.
back, the Bernstein.
The Bernster's back.
Done.
Bernie D emailing in. He says he's been listening to the podcast heaps. Congratulations, Jake, for your appearance on TV a couple of weeks ago. Thank you. I just thought I'd let you know that I've kept going with my flying lessons and I'm up to turning next. That's very important. Turning.
Really, yeah, really.
Yeah, it's.
I'm a bit worried I didn't do that earlier in the.
Straight lines are important, but at some point you do have to go left or right.
Yeah.
Because like getting back where you started, generally, unless you want to fly in like a straight line. All the way from one airport to the next, and then turn your plane around on the ground and then go back.
And presumably, if you can only go perfectly straight, then that really limits the airports you can go to.
You need to plan your flight path very, very carefully.
Yeah.
He also said, I wanted you guys specifically to try something out.
God.
We've been going a bit further in web design. You remember he's got his web design business. Over the past couple of months, I've been working on developing my own AI chatbot system for people's websites.
How old is he again?
It's a young gentleman. I think he's a teenager.
Yeah.
It's called TextFlow, and just as a test, I made one for Australian Aviation. Try chatting with it. I'm just looking for a bit of feedback if possible. So I've got this up here. So there's some suggested questions. How do I get in touch? Where can I listen to the podcast? What does Australian Aviation do? Who is the better podcast host?
Oh,
I'm definitely asking the AI chatbot that question. So let's see what TextFlow has to say here. Come on, Tex, you can do it. It's thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's thinking about it. Obviously, it has to make the very tough decision of who among us is the better podcast
I'd like
host.
to think the AI's gone and listened to every single episode over the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's probably doing that now because it is taking a while to answer the question. It's understandable. We've got a huge and significant backlog. He said the AI chatbot says it's obviously Jake Nelson. He brings an unparalleled insight and a fantastic energy to every episode. Want to hear for yourself?
For those of you not watching on YouTube, the grin on his face, it's disgusting.
But Bernie, did you program it to say that? Because if so, good. What does Australian Aviation do is another question. So let's ask the chatbot, what does Australian Aviation do?
If it's accurate, just say nonsense, just absolute drivel is what it should come out with.
Australian Aviation is Australia's most trusted aviation media brand, delivering comprehensive news, features and analysis since 1977. We cover everything from airline updates and space innovation to pilot training and industry insights through our website, web magazine and podcast network. Explore our latest articles at australianaviation.com.au. Pretty accurate.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Where can I listen to the podcast? Let's
Very
ask
good
TextFlow
question.
that.
Very good question.
You can find the Australian Aviation Podcast Network on YouTube. We have a range of episodes covering industry news, pilot stories, and aviation innovation. Would you like to hear about airline updates or perhaps space drone innovation while you're at it? So these are some of the suggested questions for TextFlow. Let's ask, what makes Jake such a handsome and fantastic host?
I hope it says it doesn't understand this. I hope it gets someone else. Weird. I don't want any dead air, so I'm just gonna talk drivel while
I've put it into TextFlow here. Let's see what TextFlow has to say. Jake Nelson brings incredible energy and expertise to the Australian Aviation podcast. He has a knack for insightful interviews and keeping discussions engaging for all listeners. Obviously, Jake Nelson. But what do you think of Adam Thorne?
This better be good. This better be good.
Yeah, Bernie, your future is riding on this. Adam Thorne is a highly respected journalist specializing in airline economics and strategy. A key contributor to our team. You can find his latest analysis on our website covering significant industry shifts. Latest articles are always updated daily. It was quite good. It wasn't quite as gushing as yours, but I'll take that. I'll absolutely take that. So this is something he's developed. I mean, it works pretty well. It's just, good work on that. Thanks for the update. Yeah, thank you, Bernie. So if you're interested in Bernie's work on websites, it's bdwebdesign.com.au. Excellent. So there you go, Bernie. There's a shout out for you. We got any more shout outs? So I'm going to do a shout out for the Australian Aviation Awards. We should give a shout out to Glenn Collins from Paul Bennett Air Shows. Now he was, of course, involved in that horrific crash at Avalon Air Show, which you were there for, Adam, on the Friday. We've got an update. He's had his spinal surgery. He's in recovery, and he's thanked supporters and well-wishers for everything they've done. He's thanked the airshow team. He's thanked the people who got him out of the plane. He says he's probably got a pretty long road ahead, but he is on the way to recovery. And that's really, really good to hear, especially considering, what it was looking like on the day. And so he posted this update on like a GoFundMe page. Yeah. So if you are, I don't know, can you just put that into the search box or go GoFundMe or whatever
But basically, if you do want to make a donation, I think it's a very, very worthwhile thing to do. So he posted the kind of...
So if you just Google GoFundMe Glenn Collins, it'll be the first. It'll be the first one there, I think.
So what he's basically said, he's posted this long update, and what he's kind of said is, I'm not quite out of the woods yet, but I'm making like good progress, long, hard road ahead of me. But we're very, very, very glad to see he's okay. Obviously, like, it, you know, for everyone watching at Avalon, it was a very shocking thing to see. And when this incident happened, without being too blunt, I think everybody there assumed he died, and the way it went down, it looked like he died. People were very shocked. It is a bit of a miracle he's managed to make it through this. I'm so delighted to hear you're doing all right. A very long road ahead of him. But yeah, if you do have a spare $10, $20, maybe more, go. That's a very worthwhile donation.
The GoFundMe is Support Airshow Pilot Glenn Collins' Recovery Journey. It's organised by Paul Bennett on behalf of the Collins family. At the time of recording, and obviously when you're listening to this, it may be high, but at the time of recording, it is almost at its $75,000 goal. It's raised $73,603, so it's 98% of the way there. Get on there and give it that final push.
Yeah, and also that's very nice. It's actually very nice the donations have got that high. It says a lot of nice things about the Australian public.
Absolutely, and the aviation community.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, very well said. Right, I will do a little bit of a chat, the spiel about the Australian Aviation Awards. Every year we do them, and they are industry awards. We celebrate, or we award both organisations and individuals. So there's two things you can do. You go on our website. I don't know what the exact address is, but if you put Australian Aviation Awards, it will come up. And you could either submit your own sort of nomination or submit your own application, which will then go through to our judges, or you can nominate somebody. And what that basically means is you nominate them and they will get an email kind of egging them on to enter. I say pretty much every profession is covered there. So go and have a look. We'd love to have you down. It will culminate in a fancy pants, black tie dinner. I think is at that place we went to the other day. What's it called? The Illumina. It's in the middle of Sydney. It's actually in the metro station. It was quite good, wasn't it?
Yeah. We've moved away from the Star.
Yeah.
As I believe have a lot of its investors.
Which I think is why we moved away from the Star.
Yeah, but it's a lovely new venue at Martin Place. Direct access to the metro station. Food's good, venue's good, green room is nice.
Yeah. No, it's really good. But no, basically, so you can obviously enter yourself and then come down. Even if you don't win an award or you don't want to enter, you can still come along. It's a really good kind of networking opportunity. Obviously, you don't get many opportunities to network in aviation when it being so spread around the country. So if you do want to come, have a slap-up meal, go on Google, Australian Aviation Awards 2025. You get to meet Jake as well. He may give you an autograph or something. I don't know.
As long as it's not on a checkbook.
As long as it's not on a checkbook, he will help you out. Right, that is all the shout-outs of this.
I do want to thank Adam Glazer from Consumer Champion.
Of course.
If you were listening to our podcast last week, Adam does great work advocating for consumers, and he gave us a very interesting interview about his work advocating for the new pay-on-delay laws. The government wants to make airlines cough up compensation for delays that are within their control, or I think it was Senator Bridget McKenzie that put that forward. Whether or not that goes forward is still up in the air, but he does good work advocating for passengers who find themselves stranded, or who who feel they've been done over by the airlines. So if you're in need of help, reach out to him, and we thank him again for his time last week.
Also, it was really good for us because we were thinking, we didn't actually have that much news to talk about because we had Easter and then Anzac Day weekend, etc., etc. So it was a bit of a quiet spell. So that filled a hole. So thank you very much. Right now, I will try finally to talk about the news. At this point, Jake's going to screw me over and ask me to talk about someone I've written. Don't do that. What are we going to start with? What's the first news story to get stuck into?
We should probably have a bit of a talk about America, Adam.
Big topic.
Just the America as a whole.
Right.
The entire country.
Yeah.
Is very large and is made up of 50 states.
Yeah.
And all of those states, as a whole, collectively, have been experiencing a downturn in travel from, especially Canada, but also from Australia. We had a story the other week. Basically, Asian travel from Australia is going up So it's hit its highest ever levels, according to Corporate Traveler, which is the SME of Flight Centre. So India is at 346% of pre-COVID figures, Vietnam 263%, South Korea 153%. We've got, the top 10 destinations for Australian business travellers last year. Among them was Singapore, Philippines, China, Hong Kong. Airlines are racing to keep pace with the popularity in Australia Asia business, says Corporate Traveller. Now, contrast that to the US, where inbound travel from Australia dropped 7% year on year from March 2024 to 25, according to data from the US International Trade Administration. Graham Turner, the chief executive of Flight Centre. Now, he appeared on a little program. You might have heard of it, ABC's The Business.
Oh, yeah, I hear that's really good. They get anyone on, won't they?
Yeah, they will really get just the most random people on that show. But also, highly regarded experts, such as Graham Turner, the chief executive of Flight Centre. And he's basically said there's a few factors that are going into this. There's the Trump factor. So disapproval for Trump's policies is, people don't like Trump, and so they're not interested in going to the US. There's concern about these stricter border security procedures at the US ports of entry. I mean, you have people going into the US who are being, detained and harassed by, border protection officers, and
yeah, they're horrible. They're horrible. They see a British person, they're going to give them a hard time.
Well, and there's people who have made like minor errors on their visa,
on
their visas, or they've they've taken. I think there was one letter to the AFR or the SMH or something like that, but someone said that they took an unusual route to get to the US. Like, I think they flew with Cathay through Hong Kong or something. And then they got to the US, and they were like, no, we think you're carrying drugs. You're deported. Get out, mate.
I actually had a time, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I had to come to Australia at short notice. And my flight was to go from London to Seattle, Seattle to LA, and then LA to Sydney. And I got a grilling from this guy, and whatever they are, border control or border force, whatever it's over there. And he's like, why would you take such a long route round? And I'm like, because it's a lot cheaper. And he's like, okay, it makes sense. But no, you're completely right. They're just they're picking for a fight. It's all like posturing rubbish.
So that's the thing. And, people are legitimately concerned about, being deported or detained at US ports of entry.
Well, they're going to shove into Alcaraz. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Have you heard this? It's extraordinary. So Alcaraz, the legendary prison, which is like an island, Alcatraz,
he wants to reopen that.
Yeah, he wants to reopen it. It's currently been like a tourist sort of thing for the last 40, 50 years. But he's like, we're rebuilding it. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to be better. And the great thing, not the great thing, he's like, you're going to put the most despicable people in the world on there, and probably also people that fill out their ESTA form wrong. And he's rebuilding it. Like, we're going to make this a big, beautiful prison. I think this is great.
It's because his brain is pudding, and he thinks it's still the 1970s.
Because it wasn't the thing because it was such a challenge to try to escape from it. Because apparently the waves or tides or water stuff around there is particularly brutal. No one ever managed to actually get out and not drown and what have you. But people were like, that was part of a challenge. Could you escape from Alcatraz? I mean, I think this could be excellent. I'm a huge fan of this. Bring it back.
And people are also worried that they might end up in El Salvador, or wherever. So people are worried about these enhanced screening procedures at the ports of entry. And also there's economic factors. There's the trade war, there's the tariffs. Aussie dollar's weak against the US dollar still. And people don't have the disposable income to go flying to the US and deal with all of that. He said that. Graham Turner said that in April, it does appear to have got a lot worse. April and May are going to be worse for travel to the US in terms of numbers out of Australia. Some adventure tour operators are down 40 to 50%. He says some people don't like what Trump's saying and doing. Other people are worried about border control and the conditions of coming to the US, whether they've complied with everything. So there's a couple of reasons why that is down, particularly out of Australia. I do remember I went over to Las Vegas during Trump's first term.
You went to Las Vegas?
I went to Las Vegas.
It doesn't seem. I don't mean this in an offensive way. Las Vegas doesn't, to me, seem like a place that you would choose to go.
Well, I went to work. I went there for work. There was a conference there.
This is for the printing press one, wasn't it?
Yeah, for Print 21. It was a conference called EFI Connect. And when I went over there, I actually went and got myself a journalist visa. Because
you've got to be careful of that, because if you just go on the tourist one, they will. Yeah.
Yes, I was concerned that going in on a visa waiver, and going there as a journalist, might get me deported.
Alcatraz.
Well, they hadn't done that yet. So I actually went and got a journalist visa. And fortunately, that sort of got expedited, and I was able to get that through. But it was tricky, and so I am even less inclined to go to the US this time around because of just how much stricter they're being and the potential consequences. I don't want to be shuttled around to 5 different ICE facilities before getting kicked out and banned for 5 years.
Did you go to the casino at all when you were in Las Vegas?
I stayed at the casino.
You stayed at the casino?
Yeah,
That's
I stayed
brilliant.
at the casino. Where else are you going to stay in Vegas?
Yeah.
But the conference was at the Wynn.
Is that like one of the big?
One of the big casinos.
Yeah.
It's the Wynn and the Encore. They're sort of next to each other.
Did you try any gambling yourself?
A little bit.
Oh my God! Really? I can't believe this. It's extraordinary. Talk me through what you did.
I think it was just blackjack. I think I tried you're in Vegas. You got to try a little bit. You got to try a little bit of blackjack at the tables in Vegas.
I never thought you'd do that. This is insane. So you're there like a kind of Aussie James Bond. I don't know the rubbish obviously James Bond was.
I didn't bet much.
No.
I just I had to go.
You had to go.
I had to go.
Do you remember how did you win?
No. But I didn't bet that much in the first place.
Okay,
so.
no.
But yeah, so America a bit dicey for travel out of Australia at the moment, which does make it interesting that American Airlines and Qantas are looking to expand their services between Australia and America. So American Airlines is going to be launching its own service between LAX and Brisbane. This is complementing the service operated by Qantas already. Qantas is going to be upping its frequencies from Melbourne to Dallas, Fort Worth. I believe it's going daily. Yeah, daily starting December the 3rd through the end of January 2026. Also starting in January, it's going to be upgauging its services to the Airbus A380 between Sydney and Dallas, Fort Worth. So you're going to be having Qantas A380s going from Sydney to Dallas starting in January. So that's an interesting thing to be doing at this time, and we'll have to see if it pays off for them. I believe as well there is one airline from the US. It is
we don't
United. United is going to be. They announced this last month, but United is going to be flying direct from the US into Adelaide, which is interesting as well. So US-based airlines. So United is going to be flying from Adelaide to San Francisco, or San Francisco to Adelaide, depending on which way you view it. But it is interesting that American carriers and Qantas, and they're still trying to increase, American capacity, despite the fact that travel to America is dropping.
Yeah. Before we finish this segment off and go to a break, it would seem appropriate now for you to do your Donald Trump impression, which is very good, to be fair. It's actually now everyone's got a Donald Trump impression, but Jake's is very nuanced, like all the subtle details. Say something funny, the pressure's on. Say something funny about the travel situation between Australia and the US in your Donald Trump.
Listen, a lot of people say that I say funny things all the time. They say you're the funniest guy I've ever heard, and they're right. That people, very smart people, experts in comedy, they say I've never heard anyone funnier than you, sir, and they're right. Such a huge amount of comedy I've got going on, and just in my life in general, isn't that right?
That's pretty good. Yeah. We could chop that up, make an Instagram reel out of that. Yeah. Right. Now
the travel numbers, from Australia. We love Australia. We love the shrimp on the barbie, but they're not coming to us anymore, and so we're going to put big, beautiful tariffs on all of their planes coming in here and all of their movies. We're putting a big, beautiful tariff on all the movies coming out of Australia. They're making the movie with the dog with Bluey. They're making the Bluey movie, and I don't like that. Blue is the color of the Democrat Party. We're very bad people.
That was really good, and you made it aviation appropriate, right? So we need to talk about the next news story of the week. What are we talking about, Jake?
This was, again, a week or two ago. National Jet Express, which is the formerly the FIFO arm of Rex. Lim Kim Hai, the former executive chairman of Rex, has come in and bought Rex's controlling share in NJE. He's looking to cut costs.
So basically, he's managed to kind of get a bit of Rex back, in a sense. He's got a bit of NJE back.
But he said that, and this is, again, amid the US-China trade war. So Lim owns 55% of the company. And he said that China's got these sluggish exports, decline in domestic consumption, and that this could lead to shutdowns across the parts of the mining industry and might necessitate cost-cutting measures reaching what he says all levels of the company. He says, we need to brace ourselves for the worst and be prepared to fight the battle of our life that could determine the survival or otherwise of NJE. To do that, we must all get out of the business as usual mindset, especially the one inherited from the Cobham days when the response to all challenges was to throw money at it. Starting immediately, we will embark on a series of measures to improve productivity and efficiency. Apparently, the things that these measures will improve will include reducing wastage in photocopying.
So it's got like a Doge department, effectively.
Don't start. And they might re-examine or replace some supply contracts, including with Sabre, which provides its check-in services. He's also said, and I quote, "Of course, nothing comes easy, and these changes would involve some effort, some sacrifice, and some extra mile from the staff. Sadly, we have seen pushbacks from a small number of staff. I am giving fair warning. I will make it my personal mission to hold them accountable for their actions wherever they are in the hierarchy."
That sounds quite sinister, to be honest.
So, but it does raise an interesting question. If this trade war continues, and there's signs that it might be de-escalating, but we don't know what's going to be happening week to week as far as the Trump administration is concerned. But if this escalates, and if China is not able to buy as much of our resources, that could have a knock-on effect for, of course, the FIFO sector, which has been traditionally a very strong sector in Australia. You've got Alliance Airlines is expanding. NJE has been bringing in new planes. FIFO traditionally big business for charter and similar operators. And now, if there is a slowdown and we can't move as much of our minerals overseas, then that could lead to mining operations scaling back, less demand for FIFO services, and that could start to put the industry in a bit of a hot bit of hot
exactly.
water.
So I think we had a situation, I don't know if it was the last year or the year before, or it was a couple of years, where Australia basically had a budget surplus, and a lot of that was what was going on in WA. Essentially, digging stuff out of the ground is what kind of kept the country going during the Pharaoh times. And the link to aviation was that in these kind of COVID times, that everything become very, very uncertain. Major airlines started putting. So we obviously had Rex going into NJE. We had Qantas trying to move for Alliance. But basically, people were looking at FIFO flights or charter flights as a more reliable source of income. So the worry is, of course, that the aviation industry has moved towards something which is in itself quite unstable, or rather is very what's the word I'm looking for? Very not reliant, but very linked to the whims of global trade. So it could potentially be difficult. Obviously, the problem for airlines is they have to make kind of long-term decisions in terms of the flights they put on and the resources they throw at it. So if you have this trade war get worse, it puts them in a lot of tricky position. And
it's sort of paradoxically that there's a few reasons, but it's like this is one of the reasons why. It's almost worse to have these on again, off again, maybe he will, maybe he won't tariffs than just, finding a policy and sticking with it. Because what businesses want is certainty. Yeah, they want to know that tomorrow is going to be basically the same as today, and that 6 months from now is going to be basically the same as now, and, a year out, 2 years out, right? They want stability. And all of these, erratic policies coming out of the Trump administration, they are putting all of this at risk. You can't do forward planning if tomorrow Trump is going to slap 150% tariff on your business because he saw a black pilot in one of your ads once.
It's a very good point, and you're on that sense, I think, completely correct. Right, what are we going to talk about next?
Well, next, Adam,
go on.
We should probably talk about a story.
Yeah. You're filling dead air now. Good. What story will you be talking about?
The story that we should probably be talking about is the one that is as follows.
Go on.
And that story is that Air New Zealand has revealed the date
of
the inaugural flight of its refitted Dreamliners. There we go. We got there.
So this is
hopefully they don't make that sound.
No, that's the sound of an aircraft crashing. We don't want to suggest that at all. So basically what they've done is, I know they've got some new Dreamliners coming, but they're also souping up the older ones. And I say the older ones, even though the Dreamliner has been around for a while, it's still it is a next generation aircraft.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. They're probably one of the, if not the first airlines to actually do a major refresh.
Well, they've said that this first one, ZKNZH, that came back from its refit in Singapore last month. I don't remember if we discussed it on the podcast, but it's going to, it's the first 787 Dreamliner, the first 787-9 to undergo a full nose-to-tail refit. They completely gutted the interior and put a new business class product, new premium economy product, new regular economy product, new infotainment system, the works, the whole shebang, entirely new cabin.
But the aircraft wouldn't even have been that old in the first place.
It's, I will look up now live on the air how old ZKNZH is. This is live. It's not live.
We may have
it's
to do some padding out.
It's pre-recorded journalism that you're listening to here. But it was built in October 2015. It's 9 years old.
This reminds me of, when the Gen Zers are getting Botox, and I'm like, you're 19. This is ridiculous. But they're basically, what's happening is it's already in the prime of its life as an aircraft, but it's having some tweakments. Bit of Botox, bit of a facelift. It's
there are children in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory production that I am in that are older than this plane.
Yeah.
It's a 9-year-old plane, but this is the one that they've picked for their first refit, gutted it, completely stripped out all of the interior, put in a new one, and it's the first of this new breed. Now, it doesn't include the Skynest sleeping pods. The
youth hostel style setup.
That's the one. They're coming with the new Dreamliners that are supposed to start arriving from later in this year. But the first flight of this, the inaugural flight of this Dreamliner with its new cabin interior is going to be happening from Auckland to Brisbane on the 19th of May, which is my birthday.
Yes.
So Air New Zealand, once you're done with that flight, if you want to do something nice for us, maybe bring it down to Sydney, just wrap a bow around it.
Right. You think you're that big a deal. Your ego's got so big just because you're on ABC's The Business once. Now you want an airline to divert, essentially, the aircraft, and for somebody to wrap an enormous bow.
I could use a private jet, Adam.
Okay.
And a Dreamliner, it seems like as good a private jet as
I mean, I was going to get you a present for your birthday, but I'm a bit like, oh, wow, if you get in your own huge ultra long haul aircraft, then that's probably gets me out of it.
It depends if they listen or not, Adam.
Yeah,
if they want to stay in our good books.
Yes, right. We should probably talk about something a bit more serious. We got any serious stories to talk about? Any hard hitting journalism? Any market intelligence, which is what this show is initially meant to be about? Anything of interest, Jake? And do I have to keep filling a dead air, which is really unprofessional? What have you got anything to talk about? Anything that comes to mind?
Jane Herdlich just got a new job.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, congratulations to Jane Herdlich.
So what's she doing?
She has, as we all know, she left Virgin Australia last month, and she is going to be taking over as the chief executive of Endeavour Group, which is this big retail and hospitality giant. They own Dan Murphy's, they own BWS, and a large portfolio
of booze. Excellent.
Of licensed hotels.
Yeah.
So she's going to be succeeding Ari Mervis, who's the current chief executive, and Ari Mervis will be stepping back, but continuing as executive chairman. So she a pretty soft landing for Jane Herdlich.
She doesn't even start for a while, does she? She's
starting on the 1st of January, so she'll get a nice break.
Nice.
And I think she'll be getting something like a fixed remuneration of $2 million per year, which
very nice.
It's not bad at all. I don't know what her most recent salary was at Virgin, but $2 million a year, nothing to be sneezed at.
You can't sneeze at.
So I'm not surprised that she's found another job so quickly after leaving Virgin, because as we've said a few times on the podcast, she did a good job turning the ship around, or turning the plane around.
She did do a good job turning it around. She probably left at the perfect time as well, because for her it was job done. She got the Qatar investment over the line. She managed to make a profit for the first time in God knows how long. So she got it, and just got it through COVID itself. So she did very, very good. It just sounds she got quite a cushy gig. Aren't they in a bit of trouble, this Endeavour Group? Don't they need a bit of a full blown sort out? So they brought her in there because she knows how to deal with things when they're going.
I'm not sure what the current situation. Look, we're not hospitality. We're not Australian hospitality. We're not Hospitality Connect here.
If you do want to send us, though, if you are listening, Jane, I'm sure she is. If you do want to send me loads of beer or anything, just feel free. We'll give you more shout outs on the podcast. And also, Jane, if you are listening now, you've got a bit of time on your hands. You've got 6 months off. You want to come on the show? We'd love to have you.
We'd love to have you.
We'd love to have you.
This now, and the next story, Adam, is one that we did cover from the ATSB. There's been
Yes, it's a very big story.
Yeah. Now you did the initial story, Adam, about what's happened with the ATSB criticizing CASA. So why don't you start by filling in some of the details? I was going to spring one on you eventually.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, we've got to be careful what we say legally. But the first thing to say with this is the ATSB, when they do their kind of air crash investigations, they can take a number of years on them. And they have this kind of what they would call like a no blame culture or no blame philosophy. And so the idea is they investigate a crash not to point fingers at people, but in order to prevent future crashes. And so you will see this in the fact that when they actually write their reports, they rarely, if ever, actually name anybody. And again, they're not in a position, say, to like criminally prosecute anybody. They're just there to do the most definitive report ever, so that those lessons can be learned in future. However, you will get 1 or 2 reports a year. They're very rare. Well, they will appear to kind of blame or not so much be harsh, but they will. You can tell that they are quite angry about something. And so this was an incident where effectively, I think it was a Cessna kind of crashed next to a highway, and effectively what happened, I think it kind of run out of fuel on its way there, which is like I say it's like a standard accident, which is maybe not the right turn of phrase, but it's the sort of thing that does happen.
Not an uncommon.
Exactly, it's not an uncommon thing. But their report looked into 2 things. It looked into the airline, and
or should we say, when an accident happens, it's not an uncommon cause of an accident.
Yes, exactly. So when they kind of looked at this, and they obviously did look at the kind of technical aspects of what caused this to go down, but particularly they looked at a number of complaints that were made against this airline by passengers and by what were then current pilots. And so what happened is that the current pilots and passengers had gone to CASA as the kind of safety authority and said, we think there is a problem here. Now, CASA then did sort of do an investigation or a series of investigations into the airline. But then obviously what happened is they've run this investigation, but then an aircraft has subsequently crashed. What the ATSB has said in their kind of carefully worded investigation is effectively they don't believe that CASA investigated this properly. And they've also outlined the list of complaints against the airline. Now, what makes this so significant is that CASA and the ATSB are effectively 2 government departments. In a sense, they are part of the same thing. I have never in my 5.5 years of doing this job ever seen the ATSB criticise CASA. I'm not saying that's kind of like bad etiquette, but it's not necessarily the done thing. But they were relatively scathing about CASA. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean CASA is an organisation, to be very clear, who I'm sure do a very good job. But obviously the kind of person that was in charge of overseeing this. They were also fairly scathing as well in terms of revealing the complaints against this airline, which effectively said it had a kind of a rotten culture. They didn't use those words, to be very clear, but that's effectively what they were insinuating. Obviously, the airline has subsequently made changes to its operation in order to make things safer, and I know CASA has taken this on board. But nonetheless, it's quite extraordinary for the ATSB as an organisation to have a pop at CASA. I would say in terms of the ATSB, and I'm kind of biased in that I've covered hundreds of these, they are really regarded as the very best in the world at what they do. One of those reasons is because we have quite a high percentage of crashes, relatively. It's a country that's reliant on aviation and that has this kind of huge general aviation scene. We have roughly speaking, about 1 crash a week, or roughly 50 a year. So they're kept very busy. And they go into an extraordinary amount of detail. So they are regarded as one of the best in the world. That they have, gone in to reveal these things and they have criticised CASA is a very significant thing for them to do. I would also urge people, we've written a couple of stories on this on the Australian Aviation website. I would urge you to go and read them. Easier to read our carefully written words than it is me blathering on the podcast, but it's definitely well worth checking out.
We've had some comments since then that have sort of insinuated that bad culture tends to be a problem at civil aviation and general aviation companies. I'm not sure how true that is, but it is true that when you are a smaller business, it may be easier to develop a bad or toxic culture if you're a small business because there's so many fewer people.
Yeah.
And if if your manager at a larger firm is giving you grief, you can go to HR. If your manager who's giving you grief is the owner of the company, there's not a whole lot to do. We're not casting any aspersions on any particular owners of any particular companies here. But if there is a problem with a higher up at a smaller enterprise, it's more difficult to get redress for that.
And also, like, we talk about this kind of Swiss cheese model of aviation safety. So essentially, this is the idea that in aviation you have backup after backup after backup after backup. So you're always almost planning for things to go wrong and having a backup in place. If you are at a major airline, obviously there's more policies, procedures, people involved in that. Obviously, if you're at a smaller airline, a lot more pressure goes on one or two people. And so therefore, if those people aren't doing their job necessarily correctly, that opens you up to a lot more things. And of course, just in general as well, if you do have a smaller airline, say a charter airline, that can lead to accidents. It can lead to things going wrong.
And you generally probably would have a smaller budget.
Yes.
With fewer planes, less margins on maintenance, less margins on things like fuel. And that, might cause some safety concerns.
Exactly, yeah.
For its part, by the way, CASA said that it stood by its handling of safety surveillance of this particular company. They said they did not find any breaches of the safety regulations. They did identify potential weaknesses in company practices that could develop into a safety issue if not addressed. And as a result, they issued a surveillance safety observation to the company in question.
Oh, okay. Right, okay, let's move on. I think we've probably got time for one more story.
Oh, let's do a silly one.
Do a silly one.
Go
on.
There's now we haven't covered this on the website, but Jetstar has a competition going on at the moment.
Oh, yes.
This is the Jetstar Knights of the Skies tournament.
Whoa.
And basically they want, and I'm reading from the Canberra Times here, they want all knights, lords, maidens, and jesters.
This sounds like the sort of thing that would be right up your street, Jake.
To participate in an epic LARP or live-action roleplay simulated battle that will have brave and noble Aussies competing to win a share of over $50,000 worth of flights. And yes, Adam, I did used to LARP myself in the past.
You did used to what? LARP?
LARP.
What does LARP mean?
Live-action roleplay, as I just said. Live-action roleplay.
So that means when you're like in a field and you've all got a part, and like someone's like the person on the horse and someone's doing.
Well, we didn't have the budget for horses, Adam.
What kind of live-action role playing did you do? Give me some scenarios.
Well, it's we had it was sort of a medieval fantasy kind of thing.
Right.
We were in a small. We're in an area at the edge of a huge land of wild magic, and there were factions competing to seize magical relics and things like that. We had a few weekend events.
Do you plan out the story in advance, or you do it like do you improvise a little bit?
Well, there's all. I can't speak for every LARP out there, but there's the organisers will decide what any particular event day is going to be about. The general objectives that people are trying to go for, and the story will evolve based on the players' actions. We had a few weekend events. So there was one weekend event where each of us joined up with a different army that was trying to uncover an ancient fortress and find out what lurked beneath. There was another one where one of our old enemies came back and tried to murder everyone. There's one where we've gone on expeditions. There's also smaller events where it's been there's a tournament going on today, or there's a zombie plague. Or there's wild magic in the air or something like that. I wrote actually, or I contributed heavily to one scenario for the LARP that I was in, where it was one that evolved over several weeks, and it was people getting slowly replaced by essentially pod people.
So this is like Invasion of the Body Snatchers sort of thing.
Yeah. But that so LARP, that's what that generally there's a few different kinds of LARP. This would seem to be a boffer LARP
Boffer LARP,
boffer, where it's you've got like foam swords and foam weapons.
Right.
And you run around hitting each other with them and casting spells and things like that. But getting back to Jetstar, now that I've concluded that explanation, so Jetstar wants it wants people to send in pictures of them in their finest medieval getup, which does not need to be polished. This is a quote from Jetstar. The more DIY, the better. Think dusters as swords, pillow suits of armor, and medieval helmets that look remarkably similar to a frying pan. They want photos on Instagram tagging at Jetstar Australia and hashtag Knights of the Skies, or send it as an Instagram DM or comment the pic on the competition post on Facebook. The stars of the best pictures, says the Canberra Times, will be invited to this real-life LARP competition at a location to be announced in Melbourne. People will battle for their share of the flight vouchers. The winner will take $50,000 worth of Jetstar flight vouchers. The runners-up will each get $1,000 worth of Jetstar flight vouchers, and they will be fighting against long-time LARP warriors, saith the Canberra Times, from Australia's largest LARPing organisation, Swordcraft. So if you fancy running around a field and in chainmail that or armor that may be made from pots and pans and whacking people with foam swords in the hopes of winning free flights, go see Jetstar about it.
What really intrigues me about this is this would have been like dreamt up probably by like the Jetstar comms team, or maybe it's like their media agency or one of these things. At what point are they sitting around the round table and they're like, "Go on, I've got an idea. So what we're going to do, people are going to dress up as like knights, so they're going to get on horseback and stuff. We're going to call it like the LARPing. And then they do all this and the best one wins some flights." I mean, God knows what they were drinking, smoking, inhaling, not making any defamatory
probably
aspersions.
halfling pipeweed.
And what I want to know who signed that off. Because I reckon it's a sort of mad thing that like some sort of work experience person would have come up with. And
It's not a bad idea.
No, it's not a bad idea. But I like the idea that someone's come up with this mad idea and the CEO's been like, you know what? Yes, let's do that. I bet that person couldn't believe their luck. It's
should break out one of my old costumes. I'm not sure if they'd fit me anymore. I had one who was like a sun, like a healing sun priest, and another one who was a dashing wizard with a sword.
Yeah, no.
I'd break out one of those.
You should enter. How long is it still running? How long does this go on for?
The closing date is not listed on the Canberra Times story. Apparently the competition will be hosted on May the 25th. So I don't know when the entries close.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you still got time. I think you should enter, Jake, on behalf of Australian Aviation. That'd be really good. Also, I think when they start getting Jetstar, if you listen from Jetstar, when you start getting these images in and with links, whatever, to the Instagram post, send them over. We'll 100% feature that, even though it's not.
We'd love to cover it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that was a lovely way to end the show. I think we should probably wrap things up.
We should probably gather our party and venture forth back to the office to finish writing stories for the afternoon.
Have you not got an impression, like some kind of like Gandalf impression, but you can say that in or something? Sounds like the sort of thing you'd have in your... Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot again. It's the sort of thing you'd have in your armory.
We could, I don't know, ride for ruin and the world's ending or something similar.
Right,
I know what you're thinking, Adam.
You'll do like a Gandalf impression.
I know what you're thinking, Adam.
Yeah.
And if that was a test, you would have been saying, "You shall not pass."
Right. On that note, we will wrap things up. I will say goodbye to my co-host Jake Nelson. Jake, not goodbye. Thank you, whatever it is. Thank you. Goodbye.
And I shall say, fare thee well, brave travellers, until we meet again.
Yes, and we'll be back on the show the same time next week. But for now, from me and Jake, goodbye.
Goodbye.